Good morning, afternoon, and or evening, and welcome to Virginia and U.S. History with Mr. Pichet. Today I'm going to be talking with you about the New World, but before we get into the lesson, we need to make sure we have an understanding of what we mean when we say the New World. The Old World consists of the continents of Europe, Asia, and Africa, and it was the known world back in the early and mid 1400s. So the New World refers to the land in North and South America that was discovered by European explorers in the late 1400s. Did this land always exist? Yes. Were there already people on this land? Yes. But it's called the New World because it was previously unknown to those people living in Europe, Africa, and Asia. So really quickly, let's talk about some people that were here before Christopher Columbus or before Europeans arrived in the late 1400s. First off, we'll start with Native Americans. There were about 500 different Native American tribes that were spread across North America alone, so that's not even counting South America. To make it easier for us to understand, because we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, we categorize these tribes into 10 different cultural groups, and those are seen on the map there, like the Northeast, Southeast Plains, Southwest California, Northwest Coast, things like that. Some of the largest Native American tribes in North America included the Cherokee, the Iroquois, the Creek, the Sioux, the Navajo, the Apache, and the Powhatan. Again, we're talking about North America specifically here. Now, you may have gone your entire life to this point believing that Christopher Columbus was the first European to discover the Americas. However, that's not exactly true. We have learned in recent years that Leif Erikson was a Viking or Norse explorer who was actually the first European to land in the Americas. More specifically, he landed on the coast of modern-day Newfoundland, which is in Canada, in or around the year 1000 AD. However, this discovery would go unknown to most of Europe for at least another 400 years. Alright, let's fast forward about 400 years. The trade for gold, spices, and silk with Asia is booming. But there's a problem. All of the existing trade routes to Asia are very long and they're very dangerous. If you look at the map, you can see some of those routes. And along these routes, they would have to deal with things like bandits and pirates, tolls, taxes, and the Ottoman Empire, which controlled a large majority of this territory that they were sailing through. So then along comes this absolutely insane man, Christopher Columbus, and he's like, why don't we just go the other way? So then Columbus, an Italian explorer, goes to the king and queen of Spain, and he's like, hey, can I borrow a boat? And the Spanish crown said, are you freaking crazy? You're going to take my boat and sail it off the edge of the earth? Why would I ever possibly agree to something like this? And Columbus said, because gold. And King Ferdinand was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense to me. And so Columbus set sail in 1492 with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and he landed in the Bahamas, which is not America. Except that it is, because the Bahamas are geographically considered part of North America. And when we say he discovered America, we're not talking about the United States of America, we're talking about North and South America. And when he got here, he thought he had landed off of the coast of India, and so he named the people that he encountered there Indians. Christopher Columbus made 4 voyages in total, and you can see them on the map here. You can pause the video if you'd like to look over the map for a moment. Alright, moving on from the crazy Italian man, let's talk about one more other explorer that we need to know. We need to know who John Cabot is. 7 years after Columbus discovered the Americas, King Henry VII of England decided it would be a great idea for England to explore this new world for themselves. And so in 1497, John Cabot became the first European to land on the North American mainland since Leif Erikson. And shortly thereafter, England started to try and create a colony in North America. Their first attempt was what's known as the Lost Colony of Roanoke in 1585. Can you guess why it's called the Lost Colony of Roanoke? It's because it went missing for unknown reasons. And to this day, we still kinda don't really know why it went missing. But in 1607, England would establish its first successful and permanent colony, known as Jamestown. So why did the Europeans decide to colonize this new world in the first place? Well, there's really a lot of reasons, but we're going to summarize it with what we call the 3 Gs that explain the reasons for colonization. So we'll start with God. There was a desire by European countries to spread their ideology of Christianity. And so when they got to the New World and they met these Native Americans, they were like, oh my God, look at all these new potential God worshippers that can attend church every Sunday and donate to our churches and they can pay us money for absolution so they can be forgiven for their sins. Anyway, so that's the first G, right? And then there's gold. Nothing, and I mean nothing, makes a 17th century monarch happier than some gold. And then, of course, there's glory. All these different countries in Europe were competing with each other. They wanted to expand their territory. They wanted to be richer than the others so that they could look better when it comes to the world stage. All right, I've encountered too many people that don't know this, so let's make sure we have an understanding that the United States of America was once a system of 13 colonies that was established by English settlers. So England, or Great Britain, or the United Kingdom, whatever you want to call it, is this country over here in the top right corner. It's an island nation, and a bunch of people sailed from Great Britain, and they came over to America, and they founded Jamestown, and then they founded Plymouth, and then they founded a bunch of other colonies that became the 13 colonies. Yeah, let's just understand that America was founded by English settlers. The first of those colonies that was settled is Jamestown. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, and Jamestown was founded in 1607 by the Virginia Company of London. The Virginia Company of London was a business, and they were looking to make money. They established Jamestown for economic reasons. They wanted to make money off of this business venture. And then they lived happily ever after, except for the fact that only 38 of them survived the first winter because they were at war with Native Americans, and they also suffered from diseases and starvation. And get this, a bunch of rich people settled Jamestown, and those rich people didn't really want to work. So, yeah. But then they were saved by the discovery of tobacco, and when they found it, they were like, oh my God, this is some good shit. I mean, stuff. So, why is Jamestown important? A, it's the first permanent English settlement in the New World. B, they created the first elected assembly in the New World, which means they had a body of people that decided they were going to make laws for Jamestown specifically, and those people were voted into office. And it was called the Virginia House of Burgesses, which still exists today, but the name has changed and it's now known as the General Assembly. The Virginia House of Burgesses is famous for writing the Virginia Slave Codes, which they used as a model to restrict the rights of free black citizens and the treatment of enslaved people, or rather, the mistreatment of enslaved people, which is probably not a great thing to be famous for, but yay, Virginia! Okay, now let's switch gears and let's talk about the colony of Plymouth, which was founded in 1620, which if you do math, I'm not a math teacher, but that's about 13 years after Jamestown was settled, and it was founded by separatists from the Church of England called Puritans, and they founded this colony in order to escape from religious persecution. If you don't know what religious persecution means, it means they were basically being killed for their religious beliefs over in Europe, and so they obviously wanted to get away from that because they don't want to be killed because they worship God differently than the other people do. 102 passengers and 30 crew aboard the ship called the Mayflower, and they landed in Massachusetts. But while they were on this ship called the Mayflower, they wrote a very historic document called the Mayflower Compact, which created the first form of self-government in the New World. Self-government means they were not going to listen to what the King of England had to say. They were going to make their own laws and have their own government. Plymouth and the Puritans were a very religious community, and so we say they founded a covenant community, which means a religious community that was based on the principles of that document, the Mayflower Compact. And then they also lived happily ever after, except they didn't, because they also died a lot from disease and starvation again. But at least they were friendly with the Native Americans. But they eventually made it through all of the hardships, and they found a lot of success by farming. But because it was a colder climate, they found a lot more success in fishing and whaling and trading with Native American tribes. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today's lesson. If you would like, you can watch our next lesson on the colonial regions, where we talk about the differences between the three regions of the 13 colonies: the New England colonies, the Middle colonies, and the Southern colonies.